Good Friday evening and welcome to the start of the 2012 high school football season.
The beginning of a new year on live TV against their big rival. Hard to imagine a better way to kick things off for Holy Cross. Until you take into account an August and July that were hard to imagine.
There were a lot of times at practice, and this sounds bad. I am very passionate about the game of football. I love coaching football. But there were moments at practice you're like going, is this really what we should be doing? Is this really this important?
That night that I didn't go visit him because I think I had to do a paper or something. He passed away.
They put her on a ventilator, because she couldn't breathe on her own. And we had to make the decision probably, 2 days after that.
I had heard my mom yelling downstairs, so I kind of got up, and then she yelled at me to call my family members, tell them my dad's not doing so well.
Gutted me. Ripped my absolute heart out.
In the month leading up to the season, 3 members of the Holy Cross football team each lost a parent. Suddenly.
It was overwhelming. Once you feel terrible. The second time you're like, this is not fair, this is wrong. The third time it just rips your heart out.
Back in late July, with coaches meetings scheduled to start in the next week, offensive assistant Brian Ortiz was set for one last off-season getaway when he got a phone call.
I was supposed to go to the coast that weekend, and my dad called and said, hey, Mom wasn't doing too good, so come in the morning so we can call the doctor and see what's going on before you head out. So I said, okay. So I got there early in the morning, and I walked in at the right time, and she was having a stroke right as soon as I walked in, so my dad was panicking, and I had to tell him, go, call 911, and I didn't think she was going to make it past there.
Linda Ortiz, at the age of 59, died several days later. At right around that same time, Holy Cross receiver Zach Fernandez was looking after his dad, Bobby, a strong, fit physical therapist who thought he'd come down with a case of walking pneumonia. A visit to the doctor revealed a much different diagnosis: leukemia. 3 days later, Bobby Fernandez died in the early morning hours.
For some reason I knew he passed away at 3:55, and I woke up at 3:45 and went to my mom's room. Or when I got to my mom's room, they had called, and my stepmom, she talked to my mom and said he had passed, and I heard, so I drove. I just went straight to the hospital, and I was pretty much in shock. I didn't know what to do.
Fall practices started 3 days later, and among the coaches there was Chris Medina, a 1976 Holy Cross graduate who'd remained a big part of the program ever since. His son Javi is now the team's kicker. On the Sunday before the season's first game, 53-year-old Chris fell ill suddenly. He was rushed to the hospital, where he died that day.
I kind of thought, shouldn't I be sad? Shouldn't I be crying? Shouldn't I be doing as worse as everybody else? And I kind of thought, I don't know why. I wanted to be as sad as they were, and I still do. I still see my mom that way, and I still see plenty of my family members that way. But maybe it'll come to me, or it'll hit me after a few more weeks or so.
Loved ones now gone, Javi, Zach, and Coach Brian Ortiz turned to their other family. None missed any practice time. Their parents wouldn't have wanted that, each says, though football only provided so much of a distraction.
I asked my mom, when's Dad coming home? And of course I had easily forgotten because I was kept so busy to keep my mind off of things I had forgotten. And my poor mom, that's probably something she didn't want to hear.
Last week I called my dad just because I saw a movie preview, and my dad and I always watch movies, always would go to the movies. And I saw a movie preview, and I'd called him to ask what do you think about it, and I just went straight to voicemails. I didn't know what to think after that.
I know how I was feeling. I'm a lot older than them, you know, and I can imagine, you know, what they were going through. You know, their dad's not going to be there for, you know, that last senior game, you know, that last prom, that last, you know, things like that. You know, they're not going to be there.
At least on 2 instances where I was just angry for no reason, and the coaches understood and let me go sit on the sidelines. I just was thinking, why am I here? I stayed and kept practicing and did what I needed to do.
It's that attitude and spirit that allowed the Knights to move forward. Because 5 days after dealing with tragedy for a third time in less than a month, they were set to start the regular season. Was there any part of you that thought, maybe it's worth making a phone call and saying, I don't know if we're ready to play on Friday night. I don't know if we can do this, given what we've gone through.
I get where you're going. I really do. The answer is no. Because if I had called Central Catholic and said, hey, we just can't play, we're just not ready, it's too much, Chris would have come back and killed me. He would have not accepted that. None of the people that passed would have accepted that. I will tell you this, it was very difficult.
Every game, after I'd come make a big play, come back and look for my dad to just see his face, or to give me a thumbs up. That's the only reason I ever worked hard, or that's why I play hard.
Did you find yourself doing that after your first big play in that Central game?
I did. I'd scan the crowd, but didn't find anybody.
Zach made several big plays that night, and Holy Cross got off to a fast start before needing a late score and maybe a little help from above.
In the final minute of the game, when we're driving, we throw a pass, it hits one of our receivers' hands, ricochets off his hands. There was a Central kid closing on the ball that would have, if the ball had not ricocheted, I'm not sure he wouldn't have picked it off. The ball ricochets off his hands, goes right over the Central Catholic kids' heads, lands in another receiver's hands, and we wind up gaining about 20 yards off the play. You know, it's almost that immaculate reception type mentality. You're like, wow.
The Holy Bowl is over.
Following Holy Cross's 37-32 victory, the Knights celebrated in a way that's part of the school's culture, ingrained in its way of life.
My brothers, the boys on the field, they awarded me the game ball. It was something unique and special because at the hospital that Sunday morning, you know, they all showed up.
You have to go out there, you have to do it for your brothers because they're going to do everything for you.
They're all like my brothers.
I've coached in public schools and I've coached in private schools, and Holy Cross is more of a family than I've ever seen. I've never seen relationships like this.
A common sight at parks throughout town this time of the year, youth football takes over Herrera Park on San Antonio's southeast side. At first glance, the Junior Eagles flag football team looks just like every other, except for a big difference. Meet 6-year-old David Cortez. That he doesn't have arms isn't preventing this young offensive lineman from playing the game he loves.
They said down, said hut, and wham. And they said down, said hut, a push.
Born with what doctors call a sporadic birth defect, David has spent his childhood living without arms. And while he's adjusting quite well, the curiosity that fills every little boy is very much a part of his personality.
He came to me and said, Mom, I wish I had arms. I said, why? He said, because he wants to learn to tie his own shoe. He wants to play his own, he wants to learn to put in his own video games. And he wants to catch a football. He's never asked me, he wishes he has arms. He's never asked, why don't I have arms? Until I guess football.
Young David's journey to this point has been filled with not only tons of emotions, but already with tough life lessons, both for him and for his mom.
As a mother, was shocked. I had to be strong very fast, be very overprotective, quick. I'm not always going to be there for him. My youngest son could do everything on his own. My oldest son, he needs to learn to do everything on his own. So I push him more than I do my youngest son.
Family is a big part of David's life. His interest in football started right around 2 years ago because he'd see his older cousins playing. When he asked Mom if he could play,
I say that there's no can't. I don't want to hear an I can't, because he can always do something just a little different. And if we don't know, we'll figure it out.
So when you have a kid who wants to play, who doesn't have arms, is your initial thought, okay, how would this?
Yeah, that was like I tried to figure it out, but you know, I saw this kid's heart.
I love it. I love football practice. It's fun, very fun.
the worries of whether David would be allowed to play then turned into a new set of concerns.
He has no way to catch himself. He needs to learn to, he has learned to, when he falls, to roll over instead of falling flat on his face. Dust, dirt, you know, he can't put his hands up to his eyes and cover his eyes. You know, for that we have to look for special glasses for him. A lot of people don't have to worry about that. He does.
But David hasn't let those disadvantages affect his play. Like a true competitor, he's instead become a pretty valuable part of the team.
Plays a right guard, and sometimes he'll play fullback. He'll block for the running back. So, you know, he's good. He's actually pretty good. Yeah.
Really? So it's one of those things where he's not only out here playing, but he's turning himself into a good little player.
Oh yeah.
So you like to push people out of the way? That's why you play on the line?
Yeah.
About the only thing left for David is to carry the ball. And while he hasn't been able to do it in a game just yet, it's only a matter of time.
And you're gonna ask me, how is he gonna run the ball? Well, we ask him to put his t-shirt, we put the ball in his t-shirt, and he bites down on the t-shirt and he runs the ball.
I want very fast. And we sit down, sit hard, I want fast.
What's the first thing that goes through your mind when you see him doing that?
Oh, that's my baby. Brings a tear to my eye. Very proud of my son. Very, very proud of my son.
He uses his feet to do what most of us take for granted. He uses his shirt to carry a football. If it seems like nothing is impossible for this little guy, maybe not much is.
Do you want to be playing football for a long time?
Yeah. Yes, of course.
So when David comes to you next year and says, Mom, I want to play tackle football.
We already talked about that. My brothers and I already figure out how we're gonna adjust his football padding to him.
Would you be surprised if you see him one day out on a freshman football field?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. That's how much heart he has. I wouldn't be surprised at all. That boy could probably even play varsity, you know. I mean, he has that much determination and that much heart that I believe that he'll play in high school.
The team leader in points, minutes, and steals for St. Mary's this season, statistics reveal plenty about Marvin Vidal Witt Jr. But stats do not define him, because the statistics of life suggest Marvin should not be where he is today.
Kind of wants things his business to stay his business. And I think if you're important enough to him, you'll be lucky enough to know his personal life.
It's a life that almost never happened. Birmingham, Alabama, 22 years ago, Marvin's mom was only 15 years old when she got pregnant.
To be honest, her mother didn't want her to have me. And not saying she just thought it would be better if she didn't have a kid, but my mom was just, convinced that she was gonna have me. So, and my other grandmother, she didn't believe in abortion. So, and it was obviously with my dad, they were in love, so she decided to have me.
Because his mom and dad had an on and off relationship, Marvin didn't see his dad every day, but he saw him plenty.
He was a pretty cool guy. I always wanted to be like my dad growing up. He was really my best friend. We just had a bond that nobody would ever know about. It was just me and him.
To hear Marvin talk about his dad, you'd think they'd spent years and years together. Instead, when Marvin was just a boy, he lost his dad under brutal circumstances.
When you're little, you know when something's wrong, and we went to my dad's house, and because we're the ones who actually went to the house, and he had been in the house for 2 days. He had been murdered by some, they said it was like gang members or something, but I found out when I was 6.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, he was shot and stabbed multiple times. It was a closed casting. So I never even got to see his face after. I had seen him I think it was like a week ago. And I seen him in actually the Braves, the Atlanta Braves. They're my favorite team today because that's the last thing I remember seeing them in, Atlanta Braves jersey.
The kind of crime that took Marvin Sr.'s life was not uncommon to the types of Birmingham communities Marvin Jr. knew. And so he moved around, raised by his mom and grandparents throughout different parts of his childhood.
It was just all to better myself, especially with things that happened with my father. And she didn't want me to grow up like other kids that I was hanging out with. Because a lot of my old friends now, they're not in school or they're in jail or some are even dead. So
Marvin was kept busy. Though his first love was baseball, his mom would take him to local youth centers, where basketball soon took hold.
Sometimes I'll even sleep there. Not overnight, I'll sleep there. I'll play there for 3 hours, take a nap there for an hour, and wake right back up and play.
And while Marvin's game grew, he did not.
I was probably 5'4".
Really? You were already 5'4" in 6th grade?
Yeah, I was pretty tall. I was one of the taller people. I thought I was going to be real tall growing up. But I just stopped growing after my 9th grade year. I've been, 5'10". 5'9" is an understatement. They got my height wrong. I'm 5'10" and a half.
Okay, so you're taller than your listed height.
5'10" and a half.
You sure?
I'm sure.
He was also sure about how big his game could be. Following high school, he traveled west for the opportunity to play junior college ball in Arizona, where last year he was named All-American. An assistant there has ties to St. Mary's, so the Rattlers coaching staff pounced. In a way, only St. Mary's can.
Oyster Bake was one of the first things you saw when you came to San Antonio?
Oh, it was one of the first things.
That must have been quite an introduction.
It was crazy. I'm like, man, this is crazy. Too many people, but it was all fun.
I don't know if I've ever had a conversation like this on a recruiting visit, but we kind of, he when he came here, he was on a bad ankle and stuff that he'd hurt, a couple weeks before. So we were kind of in the office and we were visiting a little bit and, just about, how we thought he could fit into our program and, with all the number of kids that we were going to, have to replace, coming into this year. And we knew he was a scorer and, but his comments were to me that, Coach really said, we really haven't talked about my defense yet, and I like to get out and defend. That's that's part of what I do. That's something I really enjoy doing. And I thought it was a great comment to make on a recruiting visit, but really it didn't really strike me near as much until I started getting him out here and we started working out.
It's been 15 years since Marvin and his family found his father dead. The time, he says, hasn't really helped the pain.
Every day I think about it, to be honest, every day. Yeah, especially Father's Day. I feel kind of alone on Father's Day. I like to just sit back and relax and just listen to music.
And to this day, the murder and how it happened was never solved?
Never solved. Still an open case.
How much does that bother you?
It bothers me a lot, but I mean, it's not a fair world. It's not a nice world, so you just have to learn how to deal with it. But I mean, I wish it was solved, but you know, God has a plan.
I think maybe like that's why you play so hard. You know, I think a little bit of anger is good when you play. You know, it allows you to be more aggressive, allows you not to back down. And as you can see Marv play, he never backed down.
The thing about that is I had some great people. Even though they went to jail and stuff, they always told me, hey, don't do what I'm doing. Like you don't wanna live this type of life. Just keep playing sports. Like if I could do it all over again, I would. And they would always tell me that. Even my friends, they'll be like, man, look, you gotta make it for us. Like just try to stay out of trouble, just do your best and keep playing sports, make us proud.
Seems like he's doing that just about every day. When members of the St. Mary's basketball teams had the chance to visit children at a local hospital during Christmas, Marvin was among the most engaged.
Part of our family now.
Marv kind of made it seem like, you know, it kind of led like that's the right thing to do. He was making the patients feel real comfortable. I think he probably went in the most rooms.
Being a leading scorer and his tenacity on defense, but you know now some of the leadership qualities are starting to come through too. So it's there's a lot of different areas that he's making an impact on a program.
He's a long way from those Birmingham, Alabama neighborhoods, not just geographically, but in just about every way imaginable.
I mean, I'm happy overall with my life and no complaints. And I get to do what I do. I mean, I get to play basketball every day, and that's something I love to do. And I'm going to school for free, so that's amazing too. That's just a blessing. So I think my life is just a blessing in disguise. It's not finished yet. It's just the first chapter.
His season is over, but a cause literally close to his heart is very much a work in progress.
I could live my whole life and nothing would ever happen, but it could also happen where my heart would just speed up to a rate that it couldn't control my body and I'd just eventually stop.
15-year-old Jake Stewart got that news just 5 months ago.
Were you scared?
Yes.
Jake would be diagnosed with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, or WPW, an abnormality in which there is an extra electrical pathway of the heart, sometimes leading to a very rapid heart rate.
Just complete shock. You just have no idea. I mean, he had, been out, he was playing all kinds of sports at that time.
The tests that initially revealed Jake's condition were supposed to be purely precautionary, meant to rule out any heart-related issues. Jake's mom, Kim, had heard of cardiac screenings through August Heart, an organization founded locally by the parents of August Kuntz, an 18-year-old San Antonio athlete who died suddenly in October of 2008 of an enlarged heart.
For $25 and 5 minutes, I could have saved my son's life. That's hard to live with.
Bart and Dore Kuntz's vision has led to more than 4,500 heart screenings over the last 2 years. Nearly 200 have led to referrals. August Heart has partnered with the Northeast and Northside Independent School Districts. The campaign to expand to more schools, so big, it got the attention of the Admiral.
A teenager dies every 3 days from hidden yet detectable heart issues, but this is preventable with a free screening from August Heart.
Fundraisers and partnerships with hospital systems have been vital to August Heart's hosting of the screenings. They were for the one Jake Stewart attended. Based on his results, the Stewarts had a decision to make. Some medical research indicated Jake could continue to function, even play sports, while living with WPW. Other info suggested Jake should undergo a heart procedure. Dr. Elliot Young, a member of the nationally renowned Sports Medicine Associates of San Antonio, volunteers on behalf of August Heart and is a longtime family friend of the Stewarts.
Given Jake's tendency to really give everything he's got on the playing field, and that he had this knowledge that something wasn't just quite right, and the procedure was safe and effective, though there are always inherent risks, I thought it would be best for them to proceed and try to get a procedure done that would take care of the problem entirely.
What if they can't fix it? What are we going to do? You you got to find something other than sports in this, you know. And he's a great artist, and he was good at music when he played that when he was younger. I mean, there are other options for him, but his passion is sports. And as his mom, knowing that he could lose that, obviously it pales in comparison to losing his life, but that would have taken a big part of who he is away.
Can you put into words what it's like to be a mom and to wait while your son is having heart surgery?
I mean, there are so many parents I know who have gone through, you know, so much worse than that, and so I don't want to, you know, minimize that, but knowing that he's in there and that, you know, they're working on his heart, it's just, it's a surreal, it's like an out-of-body type experience.
The 4-hour operation was followed by 5 hours in recovery. And while the day was long, Jake's path back was not.
He was walking around that night. I mean, within a couple of weeks, he was back on the playing field practicing.
Yep, less than a month after undergoing a heart procedure, Jake was ready for football. His heart abnormality fixed, cleared by doctors.
Oh, I was thinking about football probably the day I woke up from being home. I was like, all right, well, this is all starting to get real.
I was kind of hesitant when he came back, but you know, Mom told me he's fine. He can do whatever he wants to do or whatever he can do, and so we went with what she said. But I can't say that I didn't, but I always watched him just to make sure there weren't any signs of, you know, chest pains or things like that, because I really didn't know what he had. I just knew he had a heart procedure, which, you know, kind of makes you hesitant of really throwing him out there and getting after it.
Mentally, I did have a lot of people ask me, how can you let him go back and play football? And that was just never an option, if you know my household. I mean, he's grown up. This literally is what he's been waiting for years and years, to play high school football.
Not a whole lot of questions now as to whether Jake was ready. A quarterback, he just completed a good freshman football season at Clark.
You get a lot of pride to see those kids succeed in the sport or in life. For the most part, it's in life, really.
Is it fair to ask if Jake, having gone through the screening, saved his life?
Could have definitely saved his life.
Precisely the reason Dr. Young advocates that heart screenings be included in standard physicals for all high school athletes, a habit his office, which handles the Spurs and most other high-profile teams and school districts in town, already practices.
There are a number of student athletes out there that still suffer from hidden cardiac problems that don't really come up on the normal physical and the normal questionnaire that they fill out. It's very difficult to pick those things up, and sometimes these are fatal, and it's rare, but when it happens, it's tragic. And so nationwide, there has been an increased effort in trying to find ways to screen these athletes.
Here in Texas, the UIL mandates what's required of physicals for high school athletes. New this year is a sudden cardiac arrest form, a 2-page document detailing causes, symptoms, treatment, and links to additional information. One of the sites listed, August Heart.
This was just another step in the progression of trying to make sure that people were aware of a very important health issue that could impact participation in extracurricular activities.
The American Heart Association says the odds that an athlete will find himself in Jake Stewart's shoes is 1 in 333, meaning statistically 3 out of every 1,000 athletes Dr. Young sees will have a heart abnormality.
For the most part, minor problems that can be managed easily, but in some cases, things that could really avert disaster if you can find them.
Is there any plan to include cardiac screenings and tests or anything of that sort in part of the standard practice procedure of physicals going forward in terms of the UIL?
our medical advisory committee is watching this very closely, making sure that we're staying current on the latest research and information, and at this point hasn't seen the empirical evidence or data, looking at what national organizations are doing and international organizations to feel like it's at the point where they need to make a recommendation that cardiac screening be required as part of the pre-participation evaluation process. But obviously, if parents and students feel like it's something that they're interested in, something that they feel like they want to investigate, there are opportunities out there for that to occur.
Enter the Stewarts. Not simply content that Jake's heart problem is gone, they now volunteer on behalf of August Hearts. And while the hope is that their influence will range wide, it's already hit close to home.
They actually found the same thing in me that they did in one of my other teammates. So I'm trying to help him through it, and I'm trying to kind of get more people into going.
Obviously, it's changed him inside, but it's also made him more confident because he knows he is making a difference in sharing this story.
They are the sights and sounds we associate with Iraq. Images of a war that raged for nearly 9 years and continues to cost lives. For Americans, even those who bravely served, the devastation occurred half a world away from native land. Not so for Homs football player Mohamed Homeidi, who saw the horror hit right at home.
ولحد الآن جاي نشوفه بالتلفزيون.
You say like I saw a lot of things like that. Some guys kill you in front of you on the street and explodes, and some guy take him and cut him in half and all these stuff and wall. It wasn't a street. We can't see it. It was horrible.
Mohamed came to the U.S. just 4 months ago. It's a transition 7 years in the making because in an effort to shield Mohamed's 5 younger brothers and sisters from the same terror, his parents left Baghdad in 2006 for the neighboring country of Jordan.
يعني ما نقبل وشي هاي بس واحد لازم يضل يتذكرها يعني.
You say of course it's gonna stay with my mind. I still remember, but you say like with the time I still forget like a little bit, but it's still in my mind.
While in Jordan, Mohamed's family had the option to apply to several different countries for refugee status, though there wasn't a doubt where Mohamed wished to go. Because the U.S. was the country that was occupying your home country of Iraq, was there a hesitation to come to the U.S.?
لا ما أثر علي أي شيء يعني لو مأثر علي أو شيء وهاي كان ما أجينا على أمريكا كان.
I want America because it's a freedom and all this stuff, and the education here is way better than other countries.
When they arrived stateside in July, the government assigned the Homeidis to live in San Antonio. 1 month later, Mohamed was starting school. And while it's been a quick turnaround, it hasn't been nearly as quick as his transformation into a football player. 4 weeks ago, Mohamed, just 3 months into his new life, was discovered when the Huskies were in dire need of a kicker.
The kid that was doing it was injured, so I talked to our coordinator for the special teams and said, hey, we need to kind of find somebody.
If you're looking for somebody that has the capability to kick, then I was just kind of looking around the kids we already have.
He brings me this kid that doesn't speak English, it's from Iraq, and I'm like, well, let's see what he can do.
And so we put the ball on the tee, and sure enough, he just booted that ball far. And we're like, okay, it's the first time, I've just witnessed the first time he's kicked a football. And it was awesome.
And I go, whoa, that's quite a bit of a leg. Where has he been all this time? It's like, well, he's been practicing with a soccer team. He just, doesn't know the sport or anything like that. And we talked to him a little bit. He got excited about coming out.
Noticed on those soccer fields on a Tuesday, Mohamed found himself playing in a JV game just 2 days later. He might have suited up for the varsity squad had the Huskies played that week. Instead, a mere 8 days after his introduction to American football, Mohamed made his varsity debut on live TV as part of Thursday Night Lights.
He was still trying to figure out the game. I felt that the less he had to think about the stands, about the lights, about the TV, and just does what he does best and just kick it, then I felt that was my job to get him to understand. مهما كانت الظروف يسوي إذا كان عنده طموح
You say like the first time, yeah, I was like scared a little bit about it and all, because that can, people say if you got like a goal and you gotta achieve it, and whatever it takes doesn't matter, you gotta do it.
Making that decision, you know, was probably one of the best things I did, because I know that when he went out there, and even though the kick had the distance and wasn't good, he still came out, you know, a little bit. You know, I'm sorry, coach, for missing it, but I think the team, just watching him out there, just became kind of rallied around him.
Seems like the entire Holmes community has. The young man who translates for Muhammad on the field is Amir Al-Sabi, a sophomore on the Husky soccer team. He's also an Iraqi refugee. Others around campus familiar with the Arabic language also assist Muhammad daily. It's no wonder he's finding a comfort zone, especially on the football field.
He told me the other day he wanted to punt a little bit, so I let him go out there and punt. And then he comes up and says, you know, can I run? And I'm like, wait a minute, what are you trying? Can I punt but fake it and run? And I'm like, okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Are you tempted sometimes, because of the language barrier, to kind of hear what your coach says and maybe pretend like you didn't understand what he's saying because you wanted to do your own thing? Has that happened?
يقول لك يعني ما تفهم بس تسوي روحك تفهم عم تسوي الشيء اللي تريده يعني.
ايه طبعا علوم. صحيح.
Maybe it's fitting that Muhammad attends a school named Holmes. That's what he considers the U.S. now. Home. In the meantime, while he continues to learn the game of football, those in the program take a lesson or two from him.
Always excited, always smiling. Everything's fun. Everything's new to him. You know, I think back at how this game is to be played.
Regardless of what country you're from or whatever, you know, sports has that common thread where anybody who is willing to play it is going to play, whether regardless of religion, language, anything.
جاي يعلمون اللغة الإنجليزية، أشكرهم الاثنين.
He's like he appreciate and thank Coach Salas about what he all did here and all the coaches, and thank the varsity team and JV team because they treated him well when he came, and because he didn't speak English, and they like teach him how to play football, and they like supporting him and tell him don't leave it.
Silly love songs by Paul McCartney's Wings topped the Billboard charts. America met Rocky.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
Jimmy Carter won the presidency. It was 1976, and here at home, it would be the last time Judson football would finish with a losing record.
Judson was headed a different direction.
Since then, 36 straight winning seasons, 6 state titles, 5 other state championship game appearances, a storied program with so many stories.
Going into the 80 season, or maybe 81, but we were in a staff meeting and Coach Arnold, he said, you know, I believe we have a chance to have a state championship football program here at Judson. And I sat there and I heard him say that, and that was like a foreign thought to me. I never thought, you know, I just hope to be able to win some games.
We sat down with the 3 head coaches who've won state titles at Judson, as well as current coach Mark Smith.
If you really ever come, you want to walk in my shoes, I'll take you on a tour, because you get to walk into D.W. Rutledge Stadium, you can go to the Frank Arnold Complex, and you can sit in the Jim Rackley Fieldhouse. I'm just hoping I get a latrine named after me. When it's all said and done, I hope it works out that way.
Preceding Smith, Rackley, Rutledge, and Arnold was Jerry Sanders. At the age of 75, he passed less than 2 weeks ago. Under his direction, the Rockets, who had suffered 5 straight losing seasons before, enjoyed 3 consecutive 10-win campaigns from 1977 to 80.
Jerry just seemed to like come in and light a fire and bring that belief that we could win again.
Win they would continue to do. When Frank Arnold took over the program in 1980, it started a legacy that would produce the program's next 3 coaches over the next 3+ decades. The Rockets capped the Arnold era with the school's first state title.
It was fantastic. I mean, the kids were great. Community was great. Bottom line, we had some great off seasons, and kids started believing in Rocket Pride, really.
Though Arnold wasn't quite ready to walk away from coaching, the chance to take over as the district's athletic director, position he would hold for the next 21 years, was just too good to pass up. D.W. Rutledge, previously the defensive coordinator, took the reins.
84 comes along and you're taking over a team that's coming off a state title. Did part of you think, well, this is great. I've got a program that's just won a state championship, but I've also got a program that just won a state championship, and anything less now is going backward.
Right. I can remember the first day after I'd gotten the job, and Frank had cleaned out his desk and gone over to the athletic office, and I had gone in to his office, and I was sitting there, and my first thought was, what do I do now? You know.
Good job. What he ended up doing was help change the landscape of Texas high school football for the next 2 decades. In 17 years, Rutledge won a staggering 85% of his games, 7 state championship appearances, 4 state titles, including 2 straight in 92 and 93, with Gerard Douglas racking up the state rushing record along the way.
When you look at that 2-year stretch, would you go back and put that squad against any stretch that San Antonio's seen in high school football?
Of course. I've got a lot of faith in those kids and the talent that they had and the coaching staff that we had. We had some special things going on.
Rutledge's 4th state title came in 95 in a matchup that pitted Judson against the West Texas version of themselves. The Rockets beat storied Odessa Permian 31-28 in one of the most celebrated championship games the state's ever seen.
When we got to the stadium there in Dallas, we drove around the part where all the Odessa Permian fans were lined up, and it seemed like there was a jillion of them, and they were all wearing a black cap and a black shirt and black pants, and they all looked at us like, you fixing to go to war. This is going to be a fight. Both programs understood what was on the line, and boy, they were fighting to be the better than that other guy, and it was, boy, Coach, there was some great hard hitting.
Come 2000, Rutledge, like Arnold 20 years before, was faced with the kind of job opportunity that doesn't come along often. He has been the executive director of the Texas High School Coaches Association ever since.
They had gathered for athletics. They'd all hustled down to athletics that day, and they were all sitting down there. And I walked in with my street clothes, and of course they knew something was up. It was an extremely emotional day for me.
The job of leading the Rockets in the new century fell on Jim Rackley, an assistant on Frank Arnold's first staff back in 1980. Rackley had remained with Judson for all but a 5-year span in the late 80s and early 90s.
If you just don't mess it up, everything's going to work out. So. And Coach Arnold would tell me, I said, Rackley, don't mess it up.
Would you really say that to him, Coach?
Probably a couple of times.
The transition proved pretty smooth, because in his second year, Rackley led the Rockets to another state title, 2002 against Midland, a game at the Alamo Dome, which Judson won on a Hail Mary.
I had countless people tell me that when we took the ball over, they left, and they missed the final play. You see moments like that in life, it just reminds you the human spirit and what can be accomplished when you just don't give up.
The 2011 season was Rackley's last, and for the first time since '80, the school would hire someone who wasn't on its staff. Mark Smith had led Kerrville-Tybee to the playoffs in each of his 10 years there, where he also coached future Heisman winner Johnny Manziel.
You walk around and you see the pictures, you see the tradition, and that's what we talk about with the kids all the time. Our responsibility now is to uphold it, to uphold what's been set before us, to try to match it and live up to it.
An 8-4 2012 gave Judson a 36th consecutive winning season. That ties Plano for the state record. Breaking the mark and setting Judson apart once again seems a fitting next step for the phenomenon known as Rocket Pride.
Every day was about becoming a young man, how to take care of your family, how to do right, be responsible. Those were the things that we learned.
And when they come back and thank you, that's worth all the money in the world.
The work ethic that the kids have and how much effort and how much heart.
It just almost brings tears to my eyes when I think of all the kids, all the coaches the teachers, the administration. So many people working so hard to create something that was good.
The constant in this whole thing are the kids. We're truly blessed. There are some awesome kids at Judson.
On a night when many of us are spending time with our families, Xavier Robertson was spending time with what was left of his. Or so he thought.
At that point in time, I didn't have any money or nothing like that. And so one of my friends, he drew up a plan basically. And I was like, yo, okay, I'm with it.
Christmas Eve, 2012, in the East Texas town of Tyler, 22-year-old Xavier found himself in a place that, though familiar to several family members, he had managed to avoid.
Basically, it was just a burglary. And I was around, and I didn't want to tell my friends. That's basically what it was. And obviously, I was held. I was incarcerated like for a few months, and till the situation was over.
It's a situation that led to hard lessons for a guy who, growing up, often substituted friends for family.
Would you believe me if I tell you my goals and dreams? Deep thoughts. I used to think that the flowers bloom in a...
Born in Houston, Xavier spent his childhood living in the city's 3rd Ward, considered one of the most dangerous communities in the U.S. Dad never in the picture, and Mom away at prison, Xavier bounced around between other family members and through other parts of East Texas before his grandmother took him in until she passed on during his senior year of high school. And though a basketball scholarship to TCU came shortly thereafter, 4 years later, Xavier got caught in a spot he had worked 22 years to avoid.
Another thing I learned from that is always know who really behind you and who not behind you, like who really your friend, who not your friend. That situation helped me spiritually too, so it kind of got me back on track, like where I need to be going through a critical situation like that. I had a chance to sit down and just think about a lot of things and think about what's most important in my life, and I put it behind me, and I'm here.
I know the term life-changing experience can be pretty dramatic. If you think about the term itself, is it fair to ask if that was a life-changing experience?
It's safe to say that was a life-changing experience. I never been incarcerated. That never even crossed my mind.
Not being able to play basketball fell in that same category. From TCU, Xavier had transferred to Parrish Junior College before moving again to South Alabama. It was there that Ryan Wall, also a former Horned Frog, crossed paths with Xavier for a second time. When South Alabama dismissed Robertson last season, Wall, then an assistant at Our Lady of the Lake, saw a good young man and a good basketball player as opposed to a young man with troubles.
Needed a place to call home. I was on the phone talking to everybody, trying to get a hold of him, letting him know what the situation is and what kind of opportunity he'll have if he wants to choose it.
So there was no hesitation once you found out about what had happened in terms of bringing him here?
Not at all.
And I'm assuming that's because you got to know him so well that you knew what type of kid he was?
We have a background, we've had a history. I knew what type of kid he is on and off the floor. And then he was just the wrong place at the wrong time, just with the wrong people. Just made a bad decision, like we all do. And you got to live with the consequences. And he's turned it around, and it's built him stronger.
Change is coming. Hold on.
Wall and the Saints had to beat out other schools that had shown interest in Xavier. And as a result, they're now beating opponents on the court. Because on top of a winning record, at 26 points per game, X, as Xavier's teammates call him, leads the NAIA in scoring.
Is he everything you thought he would be?
Yes, everything. I know how tough he is. I know how hard he plays. I know he's very competitive. Leading the country in scoring, I wasn't thinking about that. But I knew he was just a scorer. I knew he could put the ball in the hole.
When you're leading the nation in scoring, he helps me with my assist. So he's a good guy to pass the ball to. He makes my job a lot easier just throwing the ball up to him, and he's able to go make a play.
Off the court, Xavier has even more to be proud of. After being the first member of his family to graduate from high school, he's already earned an associate degree. And he's in line to graduate from Arley Lake in December. He's a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, but has also found another way to express himself.
My life. The music goes kind of like hand in hand with basketball. For me, it's like it's an outlet for me. Like, if I'm mad or if I'm stressed out, I'll go to the gym, I'll go work out, work on my game, just get better at something, make sure I'm making progress. So if I'm mad or I'm stressed out, I'm going through something, then I go to the studio and make music.
I know somebody who never gave up.
The music you've heard throughout this piece is by Xavier. In fact, he's put out several CDs and done a number of videos.
You ever listen to any of the stuff that he's, any of his reps?
Some of it.
Yeah?
Some of it I have to turn off, but once he gets in his mode, he's a different guy in the studio.
Could that be one of the things that you end up doing?
I mean, it could be, possibly. Yeah.
It's a future that, while uncertain, seems bright, going forward with an attitude shaped by hardship and lessons learned.
When I look at X, I just think of how good God is. God gave him another opportunity to play basketball. God just tested him like he tested everyone, and so X went through the test, and I believe obviously he's made it out.
His mental toughness is unbelievable. A lot of people think they're tough, but when situations come down, you can find out kind of what the true character comes out when really adversity comes.
One word to describe my life. Yeah, I would say relentless. Like, cause whatever I go through, it don't matter what I go through, I'm gonna never stop. Like, if I have a dream or a goal or a vision, like, I'm gonna get that one way or other, I feel like. So I think everybody should feel that way about what they want to do in life.
As easy as it is to call football a way of life in this state, that saying takes on a different meaning for this San Antonio community. Welcome to the corner of Iowa and New Braunfels on the city's inner east side. Pittman-Sullivan Park, where wins and losses aren't measured on the scoreboard.
There's a lot of gang involvement and stuff, so we try to bring these kids in so we could teach them something better.
Jerry Gonzalez is in charge of the different age groups within the Raiders organization in the San Antonio Youth Football League. 2 years ago, because of costs, the Raiders were on the brink of disbanding when Gonzalez says divine intervention kicked in.
It was like an angel sent from heaven, and my prayers were answered.
In this proud land we grew up strong.
Arms of Hope, a Christian care nonprofit, stepped in to cover the costs the Raiders needed to survive. Focused on aiding children in single-parent families, Arms of Hope volunteered to pay most of the registration and equipment fees necessary to field the team.
We're going to meet the kids where they are, and their outlet is sports.
Gives them a challenge that they never thought they could do. These kids are always, no, we can't afford it, son. You can't join football. Football's too expensive. By them showing me that there's hope out there, I was able to show that to the kids. That, you know, they come to me and they say they didn't let me play in another team because they say I'm not talented enough. I take those kids and make them into talented student athletes. Because school does come first.
That's a big reason Arms of Hope came to the rescue of this nearly 20-year-old Raiders organization. The lessons extend well beyond football and well beyond the kids.
Getting them to be able to understand the hard work that it takes, the commitment that it takes. Well, when we got involved and we started our outreach part and we started working with these kids, we wanted them to know and understand, we are bringing you hope.
With the things that we do with the kids, the parents pick it up. And they say, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have my hopes to get the job that I'm in. I wouldn't have been able to pursue with my life, start thinking high expectations instead of always thinking low expectations. Take all that negativity away and put in positive.
Gonzalez calls the 150 plus kids in his organization his adopted sons. One in particular holds a special place in his heart. 12-year-old Tarek Gonzalez has been playing with the Raiders for half his life. Like many of his teammates, Tarek comes from a humble background, beginning at birth, when his mom's job as a truck driver prevented her from giving him the necessary care and attention.
He was left with us, and I knew he had to go to school and all that. So, I had to take up the role of being his dad. His dad wasn't nowhere around to be found.
My grandpa, he just done all the basics through it.
As Tarek grew, so did his love for football. And when he couldn't find a team to play for some 6 years ago, there were the Raiders, happy to welcome him to their family.
Tarek was real shy and timid. He didn't trust adults, just his grandpa. His grandpa would always have to be with him. Then he started breaking out of the shell.
Do you look at it as a chance to to help you become a better person?
Yes. It helps you stay out of the streets, do your schoolwork, stay in school.
How big a part do you think football has been in his upbringing?
Oh, right now is everything. He's everything this year. As soon as he's put foot on that field out there.
How important is that for you guys to have your team sponsored like that?
It's a big thing.
Why?
Because it brings us out more, kind of shows that we're a team.
It's a total team effort. Together, the Raiders and Arms of Hope have formed a path forward, one that goes well beyond the playing field.
We want to teach you what it's going to take in life, because the sports, that's not really going to carry you long term. But your academics, your education, the respect, all of the character traits, that's what we want to instill. And just those values, the family values, that's what's going to carry them.
Personally, my grandson's got a future. He won't be out on the streets trying to make ends meet.
Even the parents would come up to me and say, if it wasn't for this organization, I don't know where my kid would be or where I would be.
I'm sure that's what every grandparent wants, for their grandson to have the best of anything.
As another season winds down, it's natural to think about next year. Around here, it's all about the next stage of life.
We're committed to the program. We're committed to these families, and we're committed to these kids, and we want to let them know that there's a plan for their future, and we want to be involved in it.
We want that kid to bloom. We want that kid to grow and say, Arms of Hope gave me that chance. Whenever they grow up and they hear that name, they'll be like, oh, that's the sponsor that gave me a chance to be who I am now. And that's what I want to see when these kids are crossing the stage and they come back to me and say, because of you, this is my diploma.
There's a place where we belong.
For high school football players, the summer before their senior year is normally full of great anticipation. But for Austin Eatman, this summer will forever be defined by a much different memory.
It seems like it got cold. It feels like, I remember getting up and looking out the window and just looking in the sky and why me? This isn't real. And I remember grabbing my mom's hand. It was cold, and I looked at her and I closed her eyes for her because they were open, and I just broke down. It was the worst feeling of my life.
Only 17 years old, it's already been a long road for Austin Eatman. Often literally a long road during his first 3 years at Clark. Terry Lowe will never forget the unique way in which she met Austin back in 2010.
During summer training, when they have lifting up here, I saw a Clark football player with his t-shirt on walking down Fredericksburg Road. Thought it was kind of strange, a little far from the school. So being a Clark football mom myself, I pulled over the side of the road and asked him if he'd like a ride home. And I got the story, and to come back and forth, the family did not have a car.
So you drop him off at home. After
you know, he's gotten out of the car and he's walked into his house, what's the first thing that kind of went through your mind?
Something needs to be done. This kid needs help.
It turns out Lowe, whose oldest son Garrett is Austin's age, interrupted a 5-mile walk from the school to an extended stay hotel located just outside the medical center.
It had started when we had lived in Oak Creek and we had gotten kicked out or evicted, and we even had to stay in the car one night. And finally, we got to Budget Suites.
That Budget Suites was home for Austin, his brother, mom, and grandma for 4 years. But the hard times weren't just financial. Austin's mom, Avis, in only her 40s, had been living with heart problems for a while and had been diagnosed with congestive heart failure. An overwhelming situation for most, Austin didn't let on.
He goes out there, he likes to have fun. You know, he's smiling, laughing, he's giggling all the time. He's just an overall great kid.
When I see persistence, perseverance, that inspires me. And it's something I wanted my kids to become a part of and see.
And so Terry Lowe took Austin's family under her wing. From adopting them for Christmas, to helping with furniture, to praying with Avis and driving her to Clark football games. There wasn't much Terry didn't do over the next 3 years. This past June, she was out of town when she got a call. Avis had suffered a heart attack. She would slip into a coma for the next 2 weeks. Constant trips to the hospital came to an end on July 5th.
We were sitting in her hospital room, and they had looked at us and was like, they shook her head, and we kind of knew what they were doing. So they turned off her machine, and she just like, her eyes just like open, her mouth open, and that was it. They told us that's it, she's not responding. If she had kept laying there, her body just would have shut down. So said the best thing they would do is just turn off her machine, because she wasn't breathing on her own, she was breathing on a machine. So they cut that machine off and her body just like stopped, shut down, and that was it. They pronounced her time and date and everything.
The youngest person in that hospital room, Austin acted like anything but. Though he just lost his mom, he tended to his brother and grandmother, who in her late 70s had lost her daughter and best friend.
My mom would always tell my grandma to come sit out here with me, and she would say no, nagging her, but that night me and my grandma sat out there in the car, and my grandma made a remark saying she always wanted me to sit out here with her. Now look what I'm doing, I'm sitting out here, and we just both broke down, and I went crazy then. I was just in the car, I cried maybe an hour straight. It's just, still didn't feel real at that moment. Didn't go to sleep till like 5 in the morning that night. It was just bad.
Attempting to do what we're all told to do after a loss, Austin tried to move on.
I'd go out with my friends and act like nothing was wrong, but when I came home, it was like hell, you know, nobody was like on the same page or anything.
Enter Austin's other family. After coaches, teammates, and parents showed up in full force to attend his mother's service across town, they then set out to make sure the Eatmans would be okay financially.
Our Clark community, I mean, I'm telling you, it was awesome. From what they came together, I got emails, and I know they've got donations, and I know they helped them put them up in an apartment and furnish that stuff.
Yep, an apartment. For the first time in 7 years, Austin's family wouldn't have to call an extended stay hotel home.
It's good to have people that'll be right there for us, because if we didn't have them, we'd struggle in a lot of places.
More than anything, they just know that the Lowes have got their back, that this Clark community has got their back for whatever need. And it's not just now, and not just while they're at Clark, it's forever.
Austin plans on getting a job once the football season ends. He'll help his 19-year-old brother Malcolm, a former Cougar football player himself, sustain their home. Until then,
go inside, go inside, go inside.
The gridiron is where Austin needs to be.
I love it. I don't know what I would do without it. So when I would go to practice to see my friends, I wouldn't say you forget about it, but you're having fun at the moment and it feels good. So I'd say yes, football and going back to school did help me.
Society teaches you not to weep. And you know, it was a tough journey for them. I couldn't be any prouder than Malcolm and Austin.
When you look at everything, if you had to answer the question, how are you able to handle and cope and keep moving forward in a productive manner, the answer would be
she would not want us to sit around crying every day, missing her, regretting things. She would want us to keep moving forward and do big things. So I'd say as life goes on, things happen for a reason. She's in a better place. So I say the best answer to that is think about what you want to do and just do it.